It's very common that people believe that they can expect what happens to them in the future to be based on what experiences they've had in the past. It oftentimes is the reason why when we're changing our view of what we want to bring into our future, whether it's about increasing our wealth, increasing our relationships, increasing the probability that we'll have a romantic partner or a relationship that we're romantically connected to that's mutually beneficial and satisfying. But we tend to kind of repeat patterns from what we've done in the past, and then we expect that to happen again in the future. So what we want to do is we want to peel away that thought and make sure that we no longer are using the energy of our past experiences, the ones that we felt uncomfortable with or felt negative to us, to project into our future moments. And there are a lot of different ways that you can do this, but the first, most important ingredient in the success is to be mindful of wanting to make a change. When you're mindful of wanting to make a change, then you can use tools, the tools of what you're thinking about, the tool of how you feel, the tool of what actions you take or actions you choose not to take. One of the most important ingredients into this formula is what you believe. Not only what you believe that you know you believe, but also some hidden beliefs that it's worth investigating to try to pull them up. Basically, life is created through energy. And if you understand that there's a system of figuring out how your energy is going to affect whatever it is that you manifest and experience in the future, then you can be in the driver's seat of how you use those energies to succeed in going where you want to go. So let's talk about that formula. What does that look like? What is the energy that creates our reality? What the energy is the 4 ingredients I mentioned briefly. But let's look at this through almost mathematically so you can sink your teeth into it and remember it for the future. But it has to do with what you're thinking. What are you thinking? That's an easy one. I know what I'm thinking if I pay attention to it. Of course, you have to pay attention to it. The second ingredient is, how are you feeling? Feeling is not the same as thinking, although a lot of times my clients tend to put it in the same category, but it's not the same. Because if you are thinking, and you're thinking from your left brain, which tends to be analytical and oftentimes somewhat serious, but it's also the area in which you're storing negative emotions and negative experiences. So thinking on its own can actually be helping you to vibrate at a place where you didn't want to be. Your feelings, on the other hand, are stemming from the emotions. How do you feel about what you're thinking? Are you feeling something? Are you in neutral? It's interesting that sometimes when you're processing what I want to do, where I want to be, who I want to meet, how I want to live, you start to think very left brain, analytically, and see it as a decision. So when you're using this formula to get results that it is that you want, bring your feelings in, the feelings you want that match the result that you want. So for example, if I would like to have a little cottage by the sea, and I start to really think about it, and I picture it, are my emotions thinking, I don't have enough money, it'll never happen, I don't know what would happen to the kids, or what happens to my cat, or what happens to the house if there's bad weather, will a storm flood it? If this is how you're feeling as you're thinking about the house, you're not going to create the vibration of bringing that possibility into your future. But if, on the other hand, you start to think about the cottage by the sea, and you imagine yourself being daydreamy and sitting out on the back deck and watching the water and listening to nature and feeling happy and maybe having a cup of tea or a friend or someone that you care about sharing it if that's what you'd like. If you start to feel the sense that this is your driveway, this is your front door, you feel really great living there, you feel abundant living there, you don't feel like it's a burden. If you get those feelings moving forward, it feels happy, it feels vibrant, it feels possible. So you can see how those emotions that you link with what you're thinking are as critical as what it is that you think. Here's a little trick. Oftentimes when people's feelings are not aligned with their thoughts, they're going to get a little feeling like a blip, and it comes either in the chest area or it comes in the gut. That chest area or gut feeling, it's very quick. It just feels like a second or less than a second of discomfort. If you get that feeling while you're thinking, then that means your feelings aren't aligned with bringing that thing in that you're visualizing. So use that as a trigger to help you recognize that there's a little bit more you want to do as you're putting your focus there. And this brings in the third component of the formula, and that is your beliefs. Here we have, it can be pretty big because you may think you believe something, but you may believe something different. So this is the one area that even when you are paying attention, there are sometimes unconscious energies stored within you that are affecting your reality and you're not even aware of it. So getting back to the trigger of your feeling, if you get that feeling here or that feeling here of just a little ugh, a little pushback, a little discomfort, you want to check next your beliefs. What are you believing? I'm going to stick with the example of the cottage by the sea as we look at beliefs. Now, imagine you had grown up with parents who complained a lot about people who had money, and they called them selfish or greedy. And your whole childhood you were bombarded with this concept that people with less money and less stuff were the good ones. Do you think you may have a belief that if you have this cottage by the sea, which may be a little bit more of an abundant process than maybe a smaller house far away from the sea, do you think that something in your belief might prohibit you from feeling like it's possible for you? Doesn't mean necessarily that growing up with that will create that trigger or that path in you. The point is to think about it, to examine it, to trust how you're feeling as you're looking at the cause and the effect of what you have experienced in your own life. You might be someone who grew up with those circumstances and were like, this is ridiculous to say that we should live in scarcity in order to be a good person. I'm going to thrive. I'm going to experience abundance. I'm going to feel as though what I have means I have more overflow of opportunity to share and to contribute and to give. But if not even contributing, I know that I can be happier for myself if I have some more of the things that I would like in my life than my parents had. So if that's the way you have processed that kind of information from your childhood, then perhaps your beliefs are aligned with getting the cottage at the sea. So this is where you want to spend a little bit of time and use that trigger, that feeling in the gut or that feeling in your chest, to check on your feelings, but also to check on your beliefs. Because if you do want to change your future and allow it to be different than your past was, it's important that you look at all of the components in what you are vibrating to bring forth a new result. And the last component of the formula that helps you understand how your energy is creating your reality is your actions. So Your actions are always based on what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and what you're believing. So if you take those three energies and you add to it the subsequent actions that you take based on what you're thinking and feeling and believing, then you have an equal sign, and that's how you manifest your physical reality with all four of those components. I want to give you an example of how this formula might look, but you're not able to get the result that you want after the equal sign. But let's focus on actions. Okay. Now imagine you wrote a screenplay and you're really excited about it. It's something you've been mulling over in your head for a decade, and you finally put it down on paper. So you've been thinking about it and feeling it and believing it's a really good screenplay, and you feel such a great sense of all of this. Now imagine you take this screenplay and you put it between your mattress and your box spring and leave it there and expect that the way you were thinking and feeling and believing, but taking no action, was going to magically have someone pop up on your doorstep or ring your phone and say, hey, listen, I just have this sense that you wrote a fantastic screenplay and I would like to bring it to the big screen. Well, you could see that the missing component here, no matter how good you're feeling and thinking and believing about the possibility of this moving to where you want it to be, the missing component would be the action. I know you're probably thinking, well, what if I kept it between the mattress and the box spring, but I told people about it? Well, then you're taking action. But if you hide that and you don't tell anyone about it, you can see how it is nearly impossible for that screenplay to make it to the big screen. So whether you're going to network, or whether you're going to join different groups, or whether you're going to tell everybody you know about, or whether you're going to join a writing group so you can get some feedback on your style. But taking action is the fourth component that will help set up what it is that you're focusing on to bring it to the probability of success. The reason we're talking about this formula so vividly is not only because it's how you create your physical reality, but it's also how you can stop repeating patterns or happenings or circumstances that you've already experienced and you're not happy about it. You know, of course it can become a habit that if you were fired from a job and then you were fired from a job and then you were fired from a job, you might brace yourself expecting that you're going to be fired from another job. And that's scary. But if you've already experienced that several times, don't let your fear create that reality for you in the future. Step into your own life, because the power of how your reality changes or remains similar in the future is based on you. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What are you believing? And what are the actions that you're taking? So let's go back to the idea of having been fired several times. What can you do to align with the possibility that you'll have a job that you love and enjoy, that you're qualified for, and that the people around you will support you in a meaningful way, that it's a career path that's mutually beneficial for you and for your employer? We're going to start to look at what you were thinking. What were you thinking in the other jobs? How were you feeling in the other jobs? What were you believing in the other jobs? And what actions were you taking in the other jobs? Find the place where that energy or that vibration didn't align with the mutual beneficial path for you and your employer to continue. It takes practice. It takes exercising these muscles. But whenever you are repeating a pattern that's really not making you happy, it's the perfect time to step into this self-examination. And the only person that really knows what you were thinking and feeling and believing and the actions that you took or did not take in past experiences of your life is you. And no one's going to be listening to what's going on in your head. So be honest. Really try to get a sense of where the hole in that formula occurred for you. When all else fails and you think you've figured it out, if you still are creating some discomfort in any particular area after you've looked at your thoughts and you've looked at how you feel and you've looked at what your beliefs are, and then also put together a strategy of taking actions to align with what you want, always go back to the third component. Always go back to your belief system. Because as I said, that's where sometimes you don't even know what's going on. So sit down and journal with yourself and say, how do I feel about this? How do I feel about the cottage? How do I feel about a job? How do I feel about this career? How do I feel about having a boss? How do I feel about the commute? Start to write with yourself so maybe you can find the core of some belief that is not in alignment with what it is you would like to create. Part of really having what you want in life is believing that it's possible. I know you can do it. You want to know you can do it too. If you take this formula and you apply it, you can do it. There's no big mystery here. Believe in yourself and you can manifest what it is you want.